in action. Rules that keep things going smoothly and fairly. Rules that help us get where we're going, help us work together, play together, and live together. Of course, in small groups, we sometimes get along without rules.
But there aren't any loud noises, just the sounds of working. We call these work sounds. Listen.
When many of us play together, rules make the game. Rules help us play fair with each other, so all can enjoy the game. Rules that apply equally to all. It's up to each one of us to know the rules and follow them.
Why do you suppose this room is so quiet? Perhaps we can learn from the teacher.
At New York's Madison Square Garden, a city college quintet faces five fast and fancy red boots from the University of Oregon. It's the opening contest of an intersectional doubleheader, and New York draws 2 points worth of first blood.
And you know, we have found that knowing when to be quiet is a part of growing up.
16,000 fans watch the boys from the Pacific Coast as they try to stem the onslaught of City College fever. But it's all over when Silverstein shoots off the hardwood, decades the ball, and the ball game for CCNY 38-36.
Because a quiet room helps all of us learn.
How do you do it?
Well, each of us knows how to work quietly. That's very important.
But the evening sport is a long way from the locker room. In the second game, a team of Northwestern Wildcats is matched against St. John's University of Brooklyn. The lads from Illinois are off to a springboard start when Bob Coble eases Allen into the basket to take the lead.
Do you think you could walk this quietly? Listen to this work sound.
But tribal warfare comes to the gymnasium as the St. John's Indians retaliate with 2 points. From now on, the game is touch and go, with 10 men helping to get it there. A beautiful display of teamwork, and Northwestern gets in the number column with sharpshooting Bob Coble doing the honors.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Learn the Game, where you learn if you got an F for effort. I wanted to say I've been gone for some time, and I just wanted to say up front for people watching it now or watching it back that I will be leaving Lights Out Debates. This will be my last show on the platform. Got a lot of stuff going on in my personal life, and really just can't keep up with it. So just wanted to let everyone know that I may start a YouTube channel in the future. But as of right now, I can't commit to YouTube. I'm just constantly out and about, and there's just not a lot of oomph behind what I'm doing. So anyway, today we're going to be talking about Wilt's 50-point per game season and how he got it, amongst other things. But before we get into that, Rex, how are you today, sir?
All right, doing pretty well.
Awesome. So Wilt's 50 points per game is one of, Wilt's 50 points per game season is one of the most lauded and appreciated and talked about seasons in NBA history, just for the raw numbers that came behind it. But really, what did he do? I think there's a lot of answers to that, but I think people just say he got 50 points per game, look at the stat, and think it just happened. But really, how did he get there? What's something unique that he did during that time, Rex?
Well, what people need to understand is it was not organic. It was actually a preconceived decision by the owner of the team to have Wilt average 50 points a game, no matter what. because the team was losing money and the owner wanted to get out of the NBA. He had other things he wanted to do. So he was looking to sell, but no one's going to buy a team that's losing money. So publicity was what he thought. If we can't win championships and people know us and follow us, then, we need to be in the headlines. And the only avenue he had at that point was he had Wilt. So he came up with the idea because Wilt was averaging in the 30s as a rookie and second-year player. And it was like, if we give it to him every time. And he asked this of, the new coach was the coach at North Carolina, McGuire, that actually beat Wilt for the NCAA championship in triple overtime. And then he was hired as Wilt's coach in the pros. And he was asked, do you think he could pull it off? Do you think if we gave it to him every time, he could average 50 a game? And that'll get us notoriety. That'll get us attention. That'll get fans in the seats. And then I can sell the team. His book, McGuire's book, Wilt's book, actually multiple Wilt's books, mention this specifically, that it was a preconceived idea. So when people sit there and go, oh, Wilt's, one of the things that makes Wilt the absolute greatest to ever play is he averaged 50. No one else could do that. Well, no one else had an owner that said, hey, that's our number one priority for the season. What if Reinsdorf had sat there and said with Chicago, with, young Jordan, well, we can't get a winning season with this group of guys, but if we just give it to Michael every time and he just scores, we'll get attention and I'll get money. And, it's professional sports. That's the idea. So let's do that. But you see, the difference is people just think, oh, well, if you gave Jordan the ball every time, he could score 50. If you gave Kevin Durant the ball every time down court, he could score 50. If you gave it to LeBron every time down court, he could score 50. But the thing is, there gets to be a point where the other team starts, cheap shotting you because you're making them look bad.
Yeah.
Look at Jordan, the Jordan rules with the bad boys, they were leveling him. So Jordan couldn't have scored 50. He had skill to score 50, but the other teams were not going to let him score 50. But when you got a guy like Wilt, who's 7'1", anywhere from 250 to 320 pounds, depending on the point of his career. At this point, he was about 260, 265, because he was still very athletic and ran a whole lot. No one's messing with him. Strongest guy to ever play in the NBA. No one's he's durable enough. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, yeah.
The guys are not going to cheap shot him as regularly because of how the game was policed. Then he literally would get a couple shots in before anybody broke it up, and no one wanted to take those shots. So he was able to get away with it. And that's the thing that people don't understand. It's not just a thing of skill. So many casual fans are like, oh, well, he shot this many shots. Yeah, well, there's another team out there trying to stop you, It's not like he's just sitting at the playground by himself and he's just jacking up 1,000 shots. There's actually guys playing defense.
Well, a lot of people made with that stat line, it makes it seem like there wasn't. But I wanted to talk about a couple other things. So what about the rules of the time that ended up getting changed eventually with the over the backboard inbound pass, and then also I think it's the offensive basket interference where essentially Wilt Chamberlain was able to, with that play, get a ball from an inbound pass over the backboard and then be able to just top it in or do a pseudo alley-oop in ways where he intercepts a shooting ball and then dunks it in.
Yeah.
I think that's a major factor that people don't even think, largely don't think about when considering how he attributed these points or other great seasons that he had before the rule changes happened, because of how prevalent and prolific his scoring capability was by exploiting these rules.
Yeah,
Um,
and that's the thing where, the famous argument between him and Jordan, where he said, "Remember, when I played, they changed the rules to make it harder for me
yeah,
to score, and for you, and during your time, the rules changes made it easier for you." Which is true, but that's just one factor amongst 10,000. I mean, Wilt still scored after that change dropped his scoring average between the 50-point season down to 44. So he lost 6 points a game. That's a
yeah,
pretty significant drop, but it's still more than anyone else has ever done. Remember, only one person has ever averaged over 40.
and that's
When they
Will.
sit there and you got all these old players sitting there today going, "Oh, well, this guy played today. He'd average 50." And no, he wouldn't. Only one person ever averaged 50. Only one person's ever averaged over 40. And it's the same guy. And he did it because the owner had a very specific plan for him. That's why he played every minute of every game, except for 8 minutes of one game that he got thrown out of. Because the point was for him to get these absolutely staggering numbers that would just draw attention so he could sell his team. And he did. And the new owners bought it and then moved it to San Francisco. And as per the handshake deal, Wilt was then traded back to Philly, to the Sixers the next season.
Yeah.
Well, technically, it ended up being like a season and a half, because you couldn't just do it that way back then. There was all kinds of different rules.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that gets me, is on one side you have fans arguing that makes him like a Superman, that he's so far above everyone else. And in a lot of ways he was, but not in this specific context. Only Wilt could have scored 50, not because he was the only one good enough to do it, because he was the only one that fit the description of what you have to have in physical attributes to be able to do it. You have to be able to play every minute of every game. There's the famous, when Shaq said, "Why I could have done what Wilt did," to Coach Jackson in LA.
Yeah.
So Phil played him every minute of back-to-back games, just 2 games.
Yeah.
And Shaq admits, he said, I begged to come out. I couldn't do that. And that was in a slower era. Can you imagine, in the fastest era, the biggest, strongest guy in the league playing every minute?
Yeah.
That is a physical stamina that is, as an ultra endurance athlete myself, that's crazy. That is Wilt's greatness.
I actually had a conversation about that last night with a couple of people. Not talking about Wilt Chamberlain, but talking about Bob Cousy, and I tried to explain to them Bob Cousy actually did all these things in respect to all the awards and individual titles, let alone the team titles that he's probably most famous for, and the MVP he got. And a lot of the answer was, well, Bob Cousy, isn't as good as whoever, anybody. And one guy said he doesn't count anything past the line, the 3-point line, or before it, excuse me. So, and then I tried to explain, and I said, well, I'm not talking about who's better. I'm talking about who's greater, because we'll never know who's better, because we can't play time machine basketball. And reality is that they never played against each other. So, it's kind of that same thing with your Shaq statement. It's nonsensical when people say this stuff outside of their ego and things that they wish they could prove. And even with that kind of sample size with Shaq, a lot of people just over exaggerate because they can't challenge the people that they say that they could beat. And it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I saw them both, and there's a difference. There's just a difference. Now, it wasn't as close when I watched Shaq play. My seats were not as good, but I was fourth row behind the Laker bench when I was a little kid and saw Wilt, and nothing was like that. It's hard to say. It's kind of like I always hear people talk about Magic Johnson, that he has an aura,
Yeah.
that it doesn't just affect his teammates, it affects the other team. Michael Jordan obviously had it. Everyone knows that, that guys would, not want to challenge him and stuff like that, which I personally don't understand, but they all say it. So
The it factor.
Yeah. Will, the one thing I noticed was every time the ball touched his fingers, it was his. He never lost a rebound. It never fumbled out of his hands. If he got his fingers on it, it was his. And nobody was getting it away. Even Wes Unseld. And that's who he was playing. When I went. But it was just the size of him. He was bigger than Shaq. Shaq was heavier because Shaq has a lot bigger waistline, shall we say. But Wilt was bigger. Wilt's shoulders, the width of Wilt's shoulders, the length of his arms, the length of his legs, making his stride so long, was just, it looked real, and at the same time, looked like it was made in a laboratory. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely.
And that's just something that younger fans don't get, is like, this guy was literally an athletic freak of nature. That he was just physically made for this particular sport. And he probably would have actually been a better basketball player if he wasn't so outrageously gifted.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking about another situation. Why has the shooting guard position largely been unrecognized as having a plethora of great players across all time? So I think many people would agree that you could say that the greatest player of all time was a shooting guard, or other great players were shooting guards, but not to the extent and the prolificness of other great positions, most particularly the center position and the point guard. Why do people, or why is the shooting guard position, why has it not been as, I guess, lauded over time, across all time?
Because it's almost like a specialty position, right? I mean, it came about as the shooting guard. That is that's where you get your backcourt points from. He's your perimeter scorer that every team needs to open up the middle for your big man, right? And the problem is, generally speaking, they're seen as one side of the ball players because their job is to score, and people act like they can't play D. It's not that they can't play D. It's what their job is. Their job is to put the ball in the basket. That's their job. So that's what they do. Doesn't mean they can't do other things. It means that's their position. That's their job. So casual fans will be like, look at someone like George Gervin, who's one of the all-time great shooting guards that nobody even mentions anymore. You always hear, well, okay, Jordan, Kobe, Dwayne Wade, Jerry West is still named up in there. But no one ever mentions Gervin, and Gervin was every bit as good as Dwayne Wade. But Gervin is seen as a one-dimensional player. But that's because that was his job. He was the shooting guard. In the ABA and in the NBA, that was his job. When Jordan got hurt, they specifically got George Gervin so he could score while Jordan was out with the broken foot. I mean, it's literally what he was paid to do.
Yeah.
But they're seen as, oh, he's not a great defender. Well, that wasn't his job to play that. Then once you get, if you're on a bad team where your only offense, like say Philadelphia with Iverson, where he's your only offense, really, then you get the ball in his hands as often as possible. So then they don't call him a shooting guard anymore. Then they call him a lead guard. Well, what's a lead guard? Because you have two guards, right? You have two guards. One's a point guard. One's a shooting guard. But if the shooting guard is bringing the ball up because that's who you want to have the ball in your hand against superior teams, then what's the point guard? So they changed the name and they call it a lead guard. Okay, well, if one guy's a lead guard, what's the other guard called?
The not lead guard.
Yeah, so exactly. There is no name for it. So the title of shooting guard drops away, but they're all still there. You know, Pistol Pete, Walt Frazier, you know. What were some of the ones I named earlier with you? But when you look, you know, AI, obviously.
Steve
Curry. Francis, you know. But that's the thing that killed me. Like in Portland, you had Lillard and what was the other one's name? McCullough,
yeah.
Yeah,
CJ
okay.
McCollum.
Which one was shooting guard? Which one was point?
I don't know. I mean, I know what he was listed as point guard. That was Damian Lillard.
Yeah, but wasn't he the one scoring all the points?
They both were. They both were about 30-point per game scorers. But still.
But you see what I'm saying? So, you know, that's the thing is it's the title. And then when you go to you get swingmen, you get guys like, you know, I mentioned Gervin, and then guys like Alex English, you know, those 6'7", you know, perimeter guys that really swingmen, they call them. Okay, well, what's a swingman? It's someone that swings from small forward to shooting guard. So there's someone else that will play the shooting guard position, but they don't call him a shooting guard. He's called a swingman. They might have him officially listed as a small forward like Alex English. Alex English, you know, basically played, when you look at where he played, it was a shooting guard position. You know, like with Steph. Steph's called a point guard. The only reason Steph plays point is because they wanted to get Clay on the court at the same time, and Clay is not a ball handler.
Yeah.
So the team basically has two shooting guards. Because I believe it took Steph 13 and a half years or 14 and a half years as an NBA starting point guard to pass Kareem on the all-time assist list. Okay? He's not a great point guard. He's known literally as the greatest shooter ever. So that's a shooting guard. He literally is the greatest of that position. But they call him a point guard because in their game plan, they wanted two shooting guards on the court.
Yeah.
But they call him a point guard, but he's not a point guard. Half of the seasons that they won championships, Draymond Green was the leading assist man. He was the one initiating the offense more of the time.
Yeah. No, it's funny how people get attached to certain things and don't really use critical thinking, and it's not. I'm guilty of it often as well. People you're told something, and if you don't really look into it, you typically will roll with whatever somebody's told you. But the aspect of some things that even people are familiar with, and that's why I'm mentioning this. People will just say that Steph Curry was a point guard. Now, you could say, okay, well, maybe he brought it up from the, you know, from he brought it across half court and then would pass it to Draymond Green in the high
Yeah.
post, and then he would facilitate it. So you could say he's a point guard in that loose capacity. But to your point, who's really coordinating the offense? To me,
Yeah.
it's Draymond Green from the high post.
In fact, I believe if you check, and I'm not going to bother, so somebody can call me a liar if they want, but I believe during playoff runs for championships, Bill Russell led his team in assists just as many times as Steph Curry did.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I know that I'm pretty sure he did it a couple times.
Yeah. And in
Um,
most of Golden State's championships with that group, Draymond Green actually averaged more assists than Curry.
yeah. No, absolutely. Um, yeah, yeah. Can you
It's
hear all the
you
can
know,
you hear all the birds out here? I know this isn't
I
about
actually could, yeah.
yeah. I'm out front. But yeah. Oh, jeez. MJFB is dead. It's murdered. It's a political basketball assassination of my channel. Still not over it. Rex, you got anything else to say about this stuff? Or anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah. No specific thing I feel like I need to get out. No.
Yeah. I do want to start doing this. I want to keep doing our show to some capacity in the future. Um, I got to start that new channel. I might just start it and then just do things sparingly on it, and just have. If you're, I would think you are, but if you're interested in continuing the basketball talk, just do that on occasion and just
Mm-hmm.
make it more of a loose hobby versus how I've approached it in the past, where I've tried to be successful with the other channel. So I think that's what I could probably manage, because I do really enjoy this. I just can't pump out videos every day, and not that I can't, but they're gonna be shitty. But yeah.
Yeah, I never have put out a single video, like made one myself, because I just have no interest in going through all of the building it and the editing and all of that stuff. I don't have time and don't want to put, for at my age, I don't want to put forth all that effort. If you want to talk basketball, let's talk basketball. And that's all I'm here for. I'm not here to slam this player, slam that player, talk about this era. I'm not a fan of the modern NBA, but that has nothing to do with the players. The players play by the rules that the league puts forth, So I don't blame any of the players for the modern NBA. They play the way they have to play to get that contract, So, but I don't like the way that the modern basketball is played. Can't stand AAU. It's a downfall of American basketball. It's ruined the sport.
In that same conversation I was having yesterday, just to bring it up again, the guy I was talking to said that Magic Johnson would have been better than Bob Cousy if they both played in the 50s or 60s. And I asked him how he knew that. And he said, well, we got Scott Warrior here.
So,
Welcome, Scott Warrior.
hello.
What's up? You want to talk about Wilt's 50 points per game or shooting guards or
I think Wilt 50. Hot take, but I think Wilt 50 points per game is overrated
why do you say it's overrated?
because if you look at it, he played in a super fast paced era. He played 48 minutes per game, which is impressive. I give Wilt. That's won that game. Well, he had insane endurance. But as overall, I'm just not a fan of like Wilt before like 67. He's the definition stats over winning.
Exactly. Because at
That's
the time, players had no real say. The owner told him, "We want you to score 50." So he went out to score 50. The other players were told, "You pass Wilt the ball because we want him to score 50." So they passed the ball. The only one that had a green light to shoot was Paul Arizin, because he's literally one of the most respected players in history. And nobody wanted, he had that kind of clout.
and
I mean,
also
he
and
scored
also
85 in a college game.
and also it's not against. I'm not indicting Wilt because he had to play on a not very good roster before Nick Thurman and how Gear came around, but he was just asked to do much than he was supposed to do. That's why I love 67 more because I think that's Wilt's best scoring season. To me, it is.
You mean you think that's his most impressive season, not his best scoring season, or
No, I
what do you
think
mean by
I
that?
I think that's his best scoring season
In
because I
in
don't.
67, I think he didn't score 30 points that season.
Yeah, but to me, I don't. I think Wilt still had the ability to score 30 points. He just decided to become an overall round player. He became a better passer, a better playmaker, and
Yeah,
shooter.
exactly. Yeah.
And so I don't think Wilt ever lost the ability to score 50 until to me when Wilt lost his ability to score at a high level was with the Lakers.
When
Was
he
with the
had the knee
Lakers.
injury.
Yeah, yes,
When he
was
had the
with
knee
the
injury in 70, that's when the high games would end, because there were plenty of times after he changed his playing style that and I believe he went to the finals after he changed his playing style, and I believe played 7 more years. And I think he went to the finals in 5 of those years,
Yeah,
maybe even
60.
6. I'm not sure.
I think it was 67, 69, 70,
72,
72 and
73.
73.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, but I know what he's saying. What it was is that first year, not 68 when they won the championship in Philadelphia, but the year before, his first year in Philadelphia, he changed his playing style, but he still averaged a lot of points. But the assists skyrocketed, and he became he was always an effective shooter. He led the league in field goal percentage 9 times, but the shot selection, what Scott's saying is completely correct. His shot selection was so much better then that it made him very difficult to guard, not physically, which was always the issue. He was just always bigger, stronger, faster. But then he got smarter. He started playing smarter. And just like Larry Bird or Luka or Jokic, any of these guys, Dantley, that are great scorers but not great athletes, they beat you with their wits and just their understanding of the game. And when Wilt started relying on that, it made it just crazy stupid. That's when he started going to the finals almost every year, because Alex Hannum finally convinced him and he understood. He went out and tried it, and it worked. And people there was nothing you could do.
Yeah, I
Also, I
think
think.
what. Yeah. No, you're
Go
good,
ahead.
Scott.
No, you can go ahead.
Yeah, and that's what I was asking. I think it's. I wouldn't have called. I would have called it his most impressive versus his best, but that's what I was alluding to, is that that he played the best and scored in a way that enabled his team to win, where it's impressive. But that's all. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, he allowed the other players, guys like Cunningham and all that, to be the best version of them. See, that's what people don't understand about Bill Russell. Is Bill Russell he didn't compromise your other players. You could build your team, and however they played, he would fit in. On different playoff runs, Russell led the Celtics in scoring. He led them in assists a couple years during playoff runs. He did whatever was necessary. But since they went out and got a bunch of high scorers, he didn't have to worry about that, because Red wanted him concentrating on defense, because he was the greatest defensive force that it was ever on a basketball court, even more so than Wilt, because he was a lot more agile, and his side-to-side lateral quickness was like a guard. I posted on my channel a picture of Russell trying to high jump 7 feet. And he had a style where he jumped. Remember, this is before the Fosbury flop. He would jump, turn his body sideways, and get in the fetal position to go over the bar. And I got a picture of him going at 7 feet, which he missed. His foot caught the bar. But that's still jumping over Jokic's head. Sideways in a fetal position. That kind of athleticism is insane. So Russell, as opposed to Wilt guarded the middle. Bill Russell would get a lot of blocks out on the court because he would chase away from the basket. And Russell usually blocked the other players, not the guy he was specifically guarding. That was the difference in their playing styles. And that's something that people don't understand about Russell and individual stats, is if they kept a stat as to how many times you got beat. Like when my daughter played soccer, her coach, she was a defender, and her coach kept track of how many times they were beaten off the dribble. An offensive player would get around them, and how many times, what percentage of times that led to a score, right? If they kept that stat in basketball, the lowest stat would be the Boston Celtics, and behind them would be the teams that Wilt played for, because they corrected other players' mistakes. And that's something that is not shown in any statistic. And that's where a lot of people miss out on. When they just look at the numbers, like you were saying, looking at 50 points per game, 27 rebounds per game, 30 rebounds per game in a playoff series, stuff like that. They don't see the stuff. Russell's most famous quote is, "You better learn how to play without the ball, because you're without the ball much longer than you are with it." So what you do when the ball's not in your hands determines whether you win or not.
Yeah, loosely on average, you have it 10% of the time.
Well, you could say 20% when you're on offense, and because everyone always cares about offensive stats. Nobody looks at defensive stats. When you look at offensive stats, you got 5 guys on the team. Say everyone touches the ball the equal amount of time, then you've got the ball 20% of the time. Okay, well, what are you doing for the other 80%? That's what determines championships. That's a quote from Russell.
I just want to remind everybody in the top left portion where it says only 2 people are watching, that number is wrong. There's actually 400 million people watching right now. Just had to throw that one out there.
Yeah, that's my line.
Yeah. shout out the Universe Galaxy. I think he still does YouTube and live streams where he probably should have not that he hasn't gotten kicked off YouTube, but probably more rightfully so should have gotten kicked off of YouTube versus me. But
I don't know what's going on, but you can still hear me, right?
I can hear you.
Yeah, my camera is all fine, but everything else on my screen has frozen. But whatever. Still here.
Okay.
What did this? What does this say? Did Scott tell Rex how he thinks West is a better scorer than Wilt? Well, what do you mean by better? More versatile scorer? Yes, he was. That's obvious.
Yeah.
More consistent scorer? Yes, that's obvious.
What do you mean by that? Consistent score in respect to his career, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, look at Wilt. He chose to stop shooting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now that led to a lot of victories, but that's a predetermined. You're supposed to take what the defense gives you. But if you're going to sit there before the season even starts and say, I'm not going to shoot that much anymore, well, you're not really doing that, are you?
I'm not entirely sure what this means, RJD. Better all-around scorer at their best.
Well, once again, what do you mean by scoring? I mean, West was way better on free throws, better in the clutch. He didn't have the size advantage. So, I mean, it depends on, this is the whole better, greater, efficient, consistent. What word you want to use and what do you want to consider that as? I mean, yeah, the very mobile, very quick guards that can shoot from everywhere from 35 feet in, yeah, they're better and they can be a better scorer. That doesn't mean they're more effective.
Yeah.
You can have a guy, you can have Sandy Koufax out there, and possibly the greatest pitcher that ever threw a baseball. His peak is probably the greatest peak ever. But, you don't always need that every night to win. You can get Charlie Huff out there throwing, freaking knuckleballs. He's nowhere near. He's barely in the same league as Sandy Koufax. But on any given night, he can be just as effective. Individual skill does not always relate to victory in team sports. That's why I always laugh when people say, well, this guy, he averaged 50 a game. Oh, this guy averaged 30 point whatever for his career. This guy averaged this much for a playoff series. I don't care. Doesn't matter. You know who else doesn't care? The guy that won the most, Bill Russell. He didn't care. He wanted to be effective. He didn't even keep track of his own personal stats. He kept track of the team's win-loss record, and he kept track of his paycheck.
RJD says being better is being more effective. I don't know how much more elaborate I can be. It's fine though. I mean
Not
effective
in a team sport.
if effective at what? Being who's got a higher field goal percentage or effective of getting wins? Yeah, it's hard to read through text. I'm sure you could explain this if you were on the show, but um, like to what end? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like it's like saying Michael Jordan was good. Of course he was, but at what and how? You know. Um,
well, one thing I'd like to do just in my own head when I think about basketball and individual stats is okay, what would this particular player be if you took away his greatest tool? You know?
Wilt had a bunch of great tools. I think if I had to say his greatest tool in like that's accounted for in stats, I would say his greatest tool was his rebounding.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Greatest rebounder ever by far.
yeah,
No one's close to him.
yeah,
Offensive, defensive, close games, blowouts, fourth quarter overtime, chasing down rebounds, position rebounds. He was the best, period. Because it's something that is what he said many times, is that was what he hung his hat on.
yeah,
That's, and it was also a quote that Larry Bird had, the same one, was that he would, when Bird's shot was off, he'd concentrate on rebounding. That's why he had in 81, he didn't get the finals MVP. They gave it to Cornbread, but he had, I think, 2 games where he had over 20 rebounds because his shot wasn't falling. So, Cornbread took up a bit of the slack on offense, and Bird grabbed rebounds to make sure the team won. Because if you got the ball, the other team ain't scoring. If they ain't scoring, they ain't winning.
yeah. I think rebounding is the most outside of just. I think it's the most important enabling stat to score, and obviously you have to actually score. But I think in totality, I think rebounding is the most important thing you could do in basketball.
Well, the thing is, and this goes to that whole 20-80 thing, about 80% of the time you don't have the ball. Only one guy can shoot. There's only one ball on the court, right? That's why I love when people put together what their ultimate team would be. And then they put like Jordan, Kobe, Durant, Wilt, and all these guys that just shot. And it's like, you do realize there's only one ball, right? Those guys couldn't actually play together the same way that that they play, because none of them are getting their shots. So the team you have in your head is not actually what would happen on the court. Whereas everyone can get the rebound. When a shot goes up, 50-50 chance it's going in or not. Basically, field goal percentage is in the realm of 50%. It's either going in or it's not, right? It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But only one guy can take the shot. But all 5 guys can rebound it.
Yep. Real fast. RJD says assisting your team to winning games, of course. I think Wilt, again, that's still nuance, but I guess if you had to say who won more, it would be Wilt. And he still was scoring well, over 20 points per game, I believe, for both of those seasons that he won. King's Speech says, what about Moses Malone as an all-time great rebounder, or being the greatest rebounder of all time? I don't think
Moses is absolutely fantastic. I love Moses. Moses is from Virginia, like me. I love Moses. I know all about Moses. I used to watch Moses. I had season tickets to go see Moses. Love him.
Yeah, I don't think he's greater than Wilt, but I think he's
No, he
one of
wasn't the
the.
athlete. He didn't have the range.
Yeah,
Remember, if you watch old videos of Wilt rebound, he looked like Dennis Rodman. But remember, he's bigger than freaking Shaq. Think about that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so many times you have people say, oh, well, Wilt played against little 6'1" guards. No, they weren't. The average size of the NBA player was the same height. He was so big, they looked that small. And if he played today, he'd still make everyone look small
yeah,
because he's an inch and a half shorter, or I guess 2 inches shorter than Wemby, has the same reach as Wemby, but weighed as much as Jokic. Think
yeah,
about it. He'd make everyone look small today, too. People look at him playing back then and go, oh, everyone's so small. Yeah, the average size player, you can look it up. It was the same size as today. Literally the same size. They're heavier today because of nutrition. They're more muscular. It's a slower game. Back then, it was an endurance sport. You know? So the guys were thinner. People say, oh, guys then, they were like stick figures and all that. They were just as tough. They were just as, as strong in the sport, the skill, the strength you need to play the game. Today, they carry around a lot of extra muscle they don't need. You're not allowed to hand check. You're not allowed to use the forearm. So why do you have to have arms that look like a bodybuilder? See, back
no,
then, they carried the weight they needed to play an endurance sport. People look at it as a bad thing. Oh, well, it was everything, the pace back then was so high. Yeah, because it was an endurance sport. It's a game. It's a sport. You're supposed to run. You're supposed to jump. That's what the game is.
no, absolutely.
And they say they weren't as athletic then. No, they were more athletic then because they all could run.
Yeah, yeah. I think the possessions per game in today's NBA is a little misleading versus back then, because if you think about how they did it, they shot a lot closer to the basket. They were up and down the court a lot more. They didn't just set up late. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but setting up lazily in a half court set just to check up a three in 14 seconds on the with of the 24-second shot clock. Um, but yeah. King's Speech says, we prepped young Scott to debate NNB. Is that happening today? I do not know. This is kind of my, and I might even just continue to do this show on here, but I can't commit to,
This is your swan song, so to speak.
yeah, this is my swan song of doing YouTube basketball, or at least on this channel, because
This is his LeBron James tour.
yeah, this is my LeBron James retirement tour, and that number at the top left, it's misleading. There's actually 500 people watching this.
Wow, there's all kinds of questions coming in now.
Yeah. But long story short, that's a Travis question. I don't know if he's gonna. I think he's gonna continue doing this. I told him I was gonna stop, so I can't speak for him. But I would imagine if he set it up, then that would happen. Aircraft Carrier says, thanks, Dart, for letting us know the Rex podcast was this week. Yeah, I mean, I let everyone know 3 minutes before the show starts. So yeah.
Well, I was trying to load it on my channel, but it wouldn't. I couldn't get it to work. It wasn't working. Somehow my whole thing got kicked out of the computer, and I had to redo everything before this show.
Yeah. King's Speech says rebounding is important, very important. I said earlier, I think it's the most important. Aircraft Carrier says Moses Malone is underrated.
Yes, he
King's,
is.
yeah, I think he's largely underappreciated.
Because he was a quiet guy that just did his job, so he didn't get the limelight.
Yeah. King's Speech says Wilt played against Sweet Holbrook, who was taller than him.
Yeah, and he played against quite a few guys that were taller than him.
Yeah. Wilt was way, way, way stronger than Wemby. Yeah, I think everyone would agree with that one for the aircraft
Wilt's been
carrier.
dead for 26 years. He's still stronger than Wemby.
Yeah. Goatcast says players today are small. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're not typically as big as they were in the 90s, or you could argue for some guys prior to that, but I can't think of a real buff guy in the NBA right now, if that's what you're getting at, Goatcast. I can't think of one off the top of my head. RJD says underachiever. I'm not sure what that's about. King Speech says Wilt, Moses, Russell. Who gets the last spot on the rebounding Mount Rushmore? What do you say,
Rodman.
Rex? Yeah, it's got to be Rodman. I agree.
And behind them is Wes Unseld.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Because the thing with Wes, he was a different kind of rebounder. Like I said, there's different kinds of rebounders. Like there's different kinds of passers. A lot of fans don't understand that. You got a lot of point guards who are great outside in passers, like sitting on the outside, either on a fast break, hitting a cutter, on the wing, hitting a slasher, someone coming off of pick, or doing a pick and roll and doing a bounce pass to a cutter. You have a lot of guards that are fantastic outside in passers. But being smaller guards, once they get in the middle, they're not good at passing back out. You know what I mean? Like a kick out passes and such. They're always passing towards the basket. They're that type of passer. You have centers like Wilt, who are fantastic low post passers, who are great passers from the inside out. They stand there, hold the ball up high. They're taller, so they get to see all the cutters. No one's blocking their view. They can see the angles of the cutters, and they're great at hitting guys coming at them. But their passes are actually going away from the basket. That's why Wilt leading the NBA in assists was so impressive. Because back in the 60s, if you passed the ball away from the basket, you didn't get an assist.
Yeah.
So that's why when he was averaging 8 assists a game, but really by today's, how they count assists today, he would have been averaging 11 or 12 if they still scored assists the way they do now back then. But then you have guys that are wing passers. Rick Barry was a phenomenal wing passer. Ginobili was a great wing passer. Scottie Pippen was a fantastic wing passer, where they get the ball on the side from the point guard and they see the defensive shift and they can sit there like a drop back passer in the NFL, like a Dan Marino, and just hit these targets, right? That's a wing passer. There's only been a few guys that have been exceptional at all three. I believe the best one was Bird. Bird was an absolutely fantastic passer from all three spots.
Yeah.
When it comes to rebounding, you got guys that athletically grab rebounds with their athleticism and their length, where they just jump up and grab it. They don't have to box out. They just go get it. Guys like Akeem, you know. Then you have guys that chase rebounds. And that's like the Dennis Rodmans, that the ball can go on the other side of the court. He reads the shot while it's in the air. He sees where it's going to hit on the rim, and he knows the chances of where it's going to go, and he runs to that spot before the ball even starts bouncing to that spot. And then he gets there all the way across. He'll go 20 feet to grab a rebound. But then you have guys like Wes Unseld, who he gets the rebounds he's supposed to get. You know what I mean? He's a pure position rebounder. He'll stake out his spot on the board, on his side of the basket at the block. If the ball comes to that side, it's his. So his teammates only have to cover the other half of the court. Because, you know, if the rebound goes to that side, he's getting it. He gets the rebound he's supposed to get. That is, in a lot of ways, more valuable than the way Rodman would get rebounds. Because when the ball goes for a long rebound and everyone's chasing it, that means everyone's getting out of position. And playing team basketball means knowing where your other four guys are, right? So if Unseld is able to get every ball that he's supposed to, that means everyone else, as soon as they see the ball go to his side of the court, they can go to their spots, and he's going to get you the ball. That's why he's also known as having the greatest outlet pass. You know why he had the greatest outlet pass? Because his guards knew exactly when to break, because when they saw the ball going to his side, they knew he was getting it. So they would break. He would grab it, and he would do a 50-foot chest pass for a fast break at the other end. And that's how that worked, because they knew he was getting it. And that's the difference in different rebounding styles.
I want to talk about some of these comments. So there is a discussion of Wilt being an underachiever. I could see how somebody says that, but in the same light, he's one of the most decorated players of all time. Arguably, if you look at the record book, arguably the most decorated player of all time. So I don't. You can say he's an underachiever, at least in the team winning aspect. You could say, well, why didn't he win as much? I can take that, but I would hardly call him an underachiever for the things he accomplished in basketball. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my question is, how many chips would he have had to win to not be considered an underachiever? Give me that number. What
11.
Number is that?
13. 12. I don't know. Yeah.
How many? If he doubled it, say he won 4, right? If he won 4 chips, would you consider him okay? Nah, he wasn't an underachiever. Dude won 4 chips. Okay. Well, in 69, they didn't win because the coach refused to put him back in. That loss was entirely on the coach. That was not his fault. 1970, when they lost to the Knicks, he missed more of the regular season than Jordan did when he broke his foot. Wilt missed almost the entire season with a knee injury. Came back when the team doctors said, no, you're not healthy enough. Don't come back. He came back anyway. And what did he get for it? No good deed ever goes unpunished. They talk about Willis Reed coming out with the torn thigh muscle and Wilt not taking advantage and them losing. And all that blame was put on Wilt. Wilt wasn't even supposed to be playing. He had just had reconstructive knee surgery in 1970. We're not talking about 2023. We're talking 1970. He had reconstructive knee surgery and was still out there trying to play, and he gets blamed for the loss. He should have even been playing.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Some other comments that came in were is Ben Wallace in the conversation for the Mount Rushmore rebounding talk?
No.
Or Charles Barkley?
No.
I don't think either of them are close in comparison to these other guys. Like they were great rebounders in their own way, but I don't think they belong in the same breath as the other guys.
We're talking all time, guys. Were they great rebounders? Of course they were. Obviously. But we're talking about the top 4 that ever played in this league. We're not talking ever in the history of basketball. We're talking in this league, which is 6 years? Something like that?
You're being asked, is Wes Unseld the greatest Bullet or Wizard ever?
He is the greatest Bullet of all time, no questions asked, but he is not the greatest player to ever play for the Bullets historically. Okay. Obviously, that's Jordan. But Wes Unseld with the Bullets was way better than Jordan with the Bullets.
Yeah.
Obviously, because he played his whole career with the Bullets. Jordan played a year and a half.
Yeah. They said 4, I think, was the answer for the number for RJD said 4 would be the number for him not to be an underachiever.
Okay,
I
well
mean,
you
I don't
can.
know. Like you can say that with LeBron, like, oh, is LeBron an underachiever? I think that how people get that moniker per se is that they're hyped so much in some capacity,
Yeah. Well,
and they
it's the
just
whole
don't
thing.
win all
This
the time.
it's
Yeah.
where people just don't understand the sport. They don't understand what actually happened. Okay, they win the championship in '69 if the NBA had a 3-point line like the ABA did. You realize that? The
Yeah.
ABA had a 3-point line in 1969. The NBA didn't. In the finals against the Celtics, Jerry West hit a half-court shot at the final buzzer that put the game into overtime. Now, they ended up losing that game in overtime, but if there had been a 3-point line like in the ABA, that would have been a game winner, not a game tire, and they would have won the championship. So there's your 4 championships right there.
Yeah. King's speech defends his Barkley take and says he out rebounded Rodman head to head, and both he and Howard, I think he's talking about maybe Dwight Howard, um, were playoff risers and rebounders. But again, Rodman was a rebounding missile. The way I look at that, and if you want to add on to this after, Rex, but I look at that's one matchup. What did Rodman do against everyone else that he played? I think he won something like, I forget what the actual number is, but something like 6 rebounding titles. I think it was more.
Who?
Dennis Rodman,
7.
7.
He beat Moses Malone, who had 6, and then Wilt had 11.
Yeah. So, okay, that's one matchup. And that's great that Barkley was able to and I'm just taking at your word, Ro, that he was able to out rebound Rodman head to head. But that
That's
has
that's
nothing to.
a, that's not a. But once again, that's a casual fact. That's not. When Rodman first came in the league, he played small forward, and he played on a team with Bill Laimbeer and Ricky Mahorn, who both averaged, if not double figures, near double figure rebounds. He was not the main rebounder as a younger player. He was a perimeter defender that would cover Bird and Dominique like that. And he even covered Magic when they played. But that was not his priority. He was farther from the basket in a time when they didn't shoot as many threes, so the rebounds didn't come out as much to the perimeter, so he didn't have as many rebounding opportunities. It wasn't his place. Situation and circumstance.
Russell does not have 7 rebounding titles. I think he's got 3.
4.
Yeah, 3 or 4. Yeah. So, because Wilt won them all.
Yeah,
Wilt
once Wilt
also,
came in the league, he started taking them all. Wilt got them all until, I believe, the year he hurt his knee.
Yeah, I think Russell won it against Wilt once, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, well, I think he got him. He didn't win his rookie year because he only played half the season.
Yeah.
Because of the Olympics in the Southern Hemisphere. But then I think he won 3 in a row, and then I think at some point in the mid-'60s, he took one from Wilt.
Yeah. Aircraft Carrier asks, has the Wizards always been a civic joke and a laughing stock? I mean,
Well,
you
in
can
the 70s, they
speak
went
on
to the
it.
finals more than any other team, so...
Yeah, that's my first thought. So always is an awful long time. That's the first thing I think with that question is, it was arguably the most consistently good team in the 70s. So
yeah, they look at who they lost. They won in '78 against the Seattle team, and then they lost to Seattle in the rematch the next year in 7 games. Or no, I believe they won in 7 games, and they lost in 5 or something. They lost to Kareem and Oscar in '71. There's no shame in that. And then they lost in '75 in the most just effed up finals in league history, where they actually were the favored team. They were the favored team. They were the higher seeded team, but because of a scheduling conflict, they did not get home court advantage. And that screwed them.
Yeah. Rex, I've been nursing this bum knee. This is a sidebar conversation, but I've been nursing this bum knee for the last 6 months, and I ran a 5K yesterday, a really embarrassingly slow 5K. And I'm getting an MRI today for it. What I'm getting at is that my knee hurts and my body hurts because I haven't been running at all.
Try being
And
57.
yeah,
Everything
57
hurts.
probably. Yeah, 57 probably feels like I feel like now.
I went
No.
running on the beach this morning. I'm going running this afternoon with my son at the location where we're doing a 24-hour race next month.
Mm-hmm.
And I went on a bike ride earlier, and it's heck being old. There's one in here. So we got to make a hypothetical for him to win. Well, you asked. What?
Yeah.
I mean, why aren't you rich and famous? When you give me your response, I'll say, oh, so you would be rich and famous with a hypothetical, right? I mean, what kind of response is that? Are we going to have a discussion here or not?
If I was the son of John Trump, I'd be rich and famous and the president. As if everything works that way. If I invested in Bitcoin 10 years ago, I'd be rich and famous.
Yeah. Well, here's one. Rex don't know all those Gen Z terms, playoff riser and floor riser mess. Well, it's irrelevant. If you're going to sit here and quote people's regular season stats and regular season rebounding titles, then don't start breaking out, well, this guy was a better rebounder because of what he did another time of the year. And against limited competition.
Yeah.
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 Because you have guys that had great playoff runs. Good. All right. Let's talk about that. What is your, if you believe in playoff risers and all that stuff, okay, well, how was Bill Russell as an offensive player? Because as I've said multiple times in this one stream, he led the championship Celtics on their championship runs in scoring and in assists in different years. So you can't say he was average or mediocre or that his offense sucked. He led the team in scoring on the way to a championship in the playoffs. He led a team in assists as a center to a championship in the playoffs. Don't say he's an average offensive player and quote me 15 points a game, which was a regular season stat. Practice what you preach.
Yeah. All right. My phone is at 7% battery, so I think it's time to hang this stream up. I don't know. I might just keep doing these on here. I mean, it is technically my channel. But I also don't want to get in the way of Travis, who, what I understand, is going to continue it. So, if not, I'll start a new channel sometime in the future. But for the people that came in, I got a lot of stuff going on in my personal life. Nothing negative, just a lot of work stuff going on. So, it's hard for me to be consistent, and then doing this thing with Travis, it's just essentially become his show. So I don't want to interfere with it anymore, and I don't want to be a part-timer per se. So aircraft carrier says, what's the difference between floor riser and team riser? I don't know. I guess it depends on who's talking about that, but I think they're similarly. I think they're similar things. I think people often use them interchangeably, because how can you be a floor riser? You're not going to be a floor riser for yourself. You're going to be doing it with a team. So um, I don't know. Like people, maybe you're asking like, what's the difference between a floor riser and a ceiling riser? If maybe that's what you're trying to get at. One is just being able to level out the bottom and be more consistent in winning, and then a ceiling riser is how deep you go. I guess I think they, again, it's not like a simple phrase. It's not a catch-all thing. It's a team game, so you might have guys on a team that with them put into the system makes your team's floor higher, and then you might get a guy who's when he gets hot, he's able to raise the ceiling, and you might get farther along. It doesn't really. What I'm getting at is it doesn't really make sense.
No, it's just your usual casual talking point, just like advanced analytics. It doesn't actually tell you anything because you only come up with those phrases and those numbers after the games have been played. It doesn't. It does. None of that matters. Like no one seems to matter since it's all a okay. This all originated from Michael Jordan, right? From Michael Jordan, are the best. Michael Jordan fans are the best. So let's. I'll use Jordan as an example, so y'all more readily understand it. To show you the ebb and flow of history and the chronology and how everything builds upon itself and how it's a team game. Michael Jordan has the highest points per game in NBA history. Everyone watching this knows that. Wilt is second by mere percentage points. All right. If you actually look at it, I think if Wilt had scored, I think it was something stupid. It was something like 50 something or 70 something more points in his entire career, he would still be ahead of Jordan. All right. Well, Jordan got 581 extra points in his career off three-pointers. If the NBA had never put in a three-pointer, he wouldn't have passed Wilt on a per-game basis. He'd be averaging 29.5. But on the other hand, you can't just leave it at that because obviously if that line wasn't there, that totally changes the strategy in those games where he shot them, right? Like against Portland when he hit 6. Okay, well, if they weren't threes, he wouldn't have shot those shots. He might have shot 2 of them. Otherwise, he would have done his normal drive to the basket. May have only gotten 2, may have missed, may have gotten a 3-point play. It changes the entire history, not just a stat. And that's why you just can't compare stats across eras. You can't compare, minutes per game from Wilt, who was told by his owner, you're playing every minute because we want you to score as many points as possible to get eyes on the team, as opposed to 2025 or coming up 2026 saying, okay, I'm paying you $60 million a year. So if your ankle hurts, your butt is sitting because I'm not destroying my investment. Okay? That's the difference in eras. That's the difference in stats. That's the difference in money, in reality. And that's why you can't compare.
Yeah. All right, Rex. Now my phone is on 4%. But yeah, thank you all for coming. I'm not gone for good, but even when MJFB was still alive, I was leaving a lot, and it wasn't because I didn't want to do the show, but my lifestyle, my work pace is extremely high. So
It's
I just
rough
want to.
being a gigolo in Hawaii.
It is owner operator, so it's rough. No, but yeah, I'm really just unable to keep up with it. So, Aircraft Carrier says, "What's your new channel name, Dart?" I've been flirting. So I'm thinking about making a channel that's not all about basketball and more so about the past in a phrase, but it not be serious. Um, Aircraft Carrier says, "I'm the only man complaining in Hawaii." But the new channel, I'm thinking about calling it Colorful Old People, and I want to put a lot of old school comedy and old school clips of movies, and then obviously continue to talk basketball and put some old school stuff about basketball in there. But I'm thinking about calling it Colorful Old People. I just don't want it to get stuck on the basketball. But yeah, so Aircraft Carrier says what? He thinks it's funny.
I don't.
Yeah. I just it's too much with this basketball stuff sometimes, and
Yeah. Well, I
I
mean,
don't.
all it is, this is the thing. And if you want to go away, since this is our last show, well, specifically about this and all that, since this is your last show, let me go all the way back to the very first show. The very first time I was on a live on YouTube, my comment was the reason why I did not necessarily like the one thing I didn't, not that I don't like, the one thing I did not like about Michael Jordan. Now, I believe he's the best shooting guard ever. That's my opinion. I think he's one of the greatest players that ever lived. Obviously, everything he did to grow the sport, but I was labeled a hater from the very beginning because I said, with the explosion of interest in basketball because of Jordan, the sport, the talk, the way, the radio waves, the talk show, the YouTube, and everything else, it's all about Jordan. It's brought in so many casual fans that actually don't even know how to play basketball. They just want to see dunks and three-pointers. They don't know anything about how to do a proper pick and roll, how to box out, how to do, any of that stuff. They just love Jordan. And that's great. All right. But I think it's ruined those of us who actually understand the game, know the game, and love the game, not the NBA, the game. It's ruined our conversations because you get everybody just quoting the same old stuff, everyone's still 20 years later talking about Jordan. Why is no one talking about the best players today? Who are the top 3 players in college basketball foreseen for this upcoming season? What in the next Olympics, what team are they looking at on the worldwide stage that is going to be the best competition for USA? Anyone know? No, but everyone's still talking about LeBron and Jordan. And that is what I hate about Jordan bringing so much attention and all these casuals into the mix, is that you have all of these different formats where everyone's talking basketball, but very few people actually have any clue what they're talking about. That the point of the game, the point of any game, Monopoly, chess, golf, basketball, women's field hockey, is to win the game. And that is what's important. And teams win, not players. Players have varying impacts, obviously. But because it's varying impacts is why you can't grade it. If you like Coke
I've
over
got
Pepsi,
1% on my battery now.
yeah.
So
If
if
you
it
like
cuts,
Coke over Pepsi, okay, well, what percentage of Pepsi do you need to then surpass Coke? It's a stupid argument. It's something you can't do. And that's why I got into all this, to try and tell people about what the game is about. So I'm done.
appreciate it, Rex. I see your comment, Ro. I appreciate you too, man. I like your passion for the game. You keep coming back. I hope the best for you and your channel, because you're definitely putting in the effort, and that's what really matters. So if you're doing the right things and you're, trying to, in whatever capacity, like I'm not going to act like I'm an authority on this, but hard work leads to good results. So,
Well,
you
if
know, I'd
anyone wants me to
encourage you,
talk
if you really
basketball
like
on
this
their
kid doing
show,
it.
just get in contact with me on YouTube. I'll do it. I'm not putting out any of my own stuff because I'm not worrying about editing and doing all of that garbage. I got no time for that. But I'll talk basketball anytime somebody wants to.
Yeah. All right. Michael Jordan fans are the best.
George Mikan fans rule.
George Mikan fans are second close. Second close to being the best. All right, guys. I'll see you later.
See ya.